Okay, so like I said, today we're starting our Blitz. This is day 1. We're going to be going over solving equations, solving inequalities, and simplifying expressions. So what's the difference between an expression and an equation? Expressions don't have equal signs. That means your calculator cannot solve an expression. Can your calculator solve an equation? Yes, so that's a big difference. This is an expression, so we're going to have to simplify it. So what is the first thing that we would deal with? Parentheses. So I'm going to distribute this negative 1/5 to the 30p. I am also going to distribute it to the 15. But what kind of 15 is this? A negative 15. So I have 8p squared minus a fifth of 30. Y'all know that multiplying by a fifth is the same thing as dividing by 5. So 30 divided by 5 is? So I have minus 6p. And then what is a negative times a negative? Positive. What is a fifth of 15? It's just 15 divided by 5, which is 3. Now that I dealt with these parentheses, I'm going to deal with these. What do I have to distribute here? That negative has to go to everything in parentheses. So this becomes minus 6p squared plus 9, because two negatives make a positive. Now, you can choose to do the stacking method where you're combining like terms, or you can choose the highlighter method. So I like colors, so I'm going to choose the highlighter method. I'm going to do 8 minus 6, which is, anybody? 2p squared. This 6p, this negative 6p, is all by itself. There's nothing to combine with it. So I just put it in a color and say, hey, I just got to bring it down. But I can combine the regular numbers with the regular numbers. So what is 3 plus 9? 12. And then this question would be a drag and drop. So you would drop your 2 here. So that's that one. You would drop your negative 6 or your minus 6 here. And your positive 12 would go there. Oops. Questions on this one? Okay, let's look at the next one. This says, what is the solution? So what's the difference between this one and this one? This one has an equal sign, so you're actually going to solve for an answer. Now, will your calculator solve this? Yes, okay, but your calculator's not going to solve inequalities. So if this equal sign was like a greater than sign, then your calculator is not going to do it. So I am going to make sure you know how to do it with your calculator and by hand. Make sense? All right, so let's do it in the calculator first. What's the first thing I check for before I even go to y equals? My window. I have to make sure that my window is set large enough to see the intersection. Now, if I'm set to 500 and negative 500, it's really hard to see the lines, but it will see the answer. Make sense? But real quick, because it's on your assignment today, what if you get an error? Then it's either no solution or you put it in wrong. So how could I check if it was no solution? By looking at my graph to see if the lines are. What does a no solution graph look like? Parallel lines. So if they're parallel, that's why you got the error, because they're never going to touch. Make sense? If they're not parallel, then you just put something in wrong and you need to check your y equals. All right, so mine's set good. Let's go to y equals. Clear everything out. We're going to put the left side in y1, and you're going to put it exactly how you see it. So negative 3x minus, open parentheses, 5x plus 6, close parentheses. And then I'm going to go to y2, and I'm going to put in negative 2, open parentheses, 2x minus 8, close the parentheses. Are we okay? Now what do I do? Second, trace 5, because I want the intersection. Wait for it to graph. Remember, don't freeze your calculator up by hitting anything. And then hit enter until you see the words intersection. So the answer is negative 5.5. Write it real low because we're going to go solve it by hand. Now, on the EOC, absolutely use your calculator. I'm fine with that. But again, what if this had been a greater than sign? You could still put it in, and it's going to tell you that your final answer should be x is something to negative 5.5. So it will give you this piece, but it's not going to give you if it should be a greater than or less than sign. So let's just go over that real quick. When do you flip an inequality sign? When you multiply or divide both sides by a negative to get rid of that coefficient, okay? But this is not, let's just go solve this by hand. Everybody ready? Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is deal with the parentheses. So I'm going to distribute this negative sign to everything here. So I have negative 3x minus 5x minus 6 equals, now I have to distribute the negative 2. Negative 4x plus what? 16. Questions so far? Are we okay? All right, so I would combine these like terms. What is negative 3 minus 5? Negative 8x minus 6 equals negative 4x plus 16. Now I'm going to move all the, excuse me, the x's to the left. I'm going to move this by adding. And I'm left with negative 4x minus 6 equals 16. Now I would move the minus 6 by doing what? Adding 6. So I have negative 4x equals, and 16 plus 6 is 22. Now question. If this had been an inequality sign, would my sign flip? Yes, because I would have to divide both sides by negative 4, and the inequality sign would flip. And that's on your assignment. That's why I'm talking about it, okay? But this is not an inequality, so I'm just going to divide by negative 4. And 22 divided by negative 4 is, guess what? Negative 5.5, which is what our calculator gave us. So again, if this was an inequality sign, you can still put the left side in y1, the right side in y2, and it will tell you at least the number that you should get right here. You would just solve it by hand to see if the sign would need to flip. Any questions on that? Okay, look at the next problem. How would y'all do this? In y equals. So let's just go do it in y equals. Now, does y equal let you put in different variables? No. It only lets you put in x's, so go put it in. Before you do anything, always check and make sure you put it in correctly. And now I hit second trace, option 5. When I watch it graph, I'm looking to see if it's parallel lines, because if it is, it should be no solution. I hit enter, 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 and it is negative 2. Now, I'm going to pass out the assignment, and I'm going to help you set a few of them up that were a little bit challenging. Okay, the first thing I want you to do, which one was it? Go to number 10. Actually, go to number 9. Number 9 we've talked about before, so I'm not going to set it up for you. I just want to briefly talk about it. It basically says the area of the rectangle is equal to the area of the triangle. So you have to know your formulas for area. So how do you find the area of a rectangle? Length times width or base times height, same thing. On your STAAR chart last year it said base times height, it's the same thing. All right, how do you find the area of a triangle? 1/2 BH or BH divided by 2. And it doesn't matter how you do it, okay? Once you set this up and you have that equal sign in the middle, you can absolutely put this in y1 and this in y2, and it will solve it for you, okay? Now, number 10 is one I want to help you set up, and number 11. So I'm going to give y'all a second to read number 10 on your own, and then I want y'all to tell me what you think we need to do. So now that you've read it, what was the word that you saw that told you what you need to do? Difference. What does difference mean? Subtract. But here's the problem. This is a polynomial. So it's not like you're just subtracting 10 minus 5. You are taking this polynomial and subtracting this entire polynomial. Does that make sense? So should I put this in parentheses? Yes. So I'm actually going to do 13d squared plus 14d minus 17, and then I'm going to subtract the entire polynomial for route 2. 19 halves d minus 5 halves d plus 6. What does that mean is going to happen before I can subtract anything?
You have to distribute it.
I have to distribute the minus sign. Does that make sense? Now, you didn't have to write it out like this. You could have just distributed over here and it was already stacked for you. I just need y'all to understand why. You're subtracting the entire polynomial. So this is minus this, minus this, minus this. Make sense? All right, now I'm going to give you a second to read number 11. It's probably the most confusing question. I want everybody to read it so that we can set it up together. So basically, you're trying to find the distance from here to here. Yes? You know this, and you know the entire rope is that. So how could I do this? Subtract. So I'm going to take this, and what am I going to do? Subtract this and subtract. But what did we just learn? When we subtract polynomials, you have to subtract the entire polynomial. So you need to put them in parentheses and distribute that subtraction sign. Does that make sense? Yes or no? So I'm basically going to take 6x squared minus x plus 12. Now, because this is so long, I'm just going to stack it. Okay? I'm going to subtract this part. So 2x squared plus 2x minus 2. And then I'm also going to subtract this part, which is x squared plus 17. Notice I moved it all the way to the right just because I stacked it in like terms. Before I can go subtract anything, what do I have to do first? Distribute the subtraction signs. Yes? And then combine like terms. Does that make sense? Okay. You may get started. Ask me for help if you need help. I'd like for y'all to do your absolute best to get as many done today, so that if you do need my help, I'm here to help you.